Hello everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and I'm here to review The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, Season 1 on Amazon, and my favorite films of all time are Lord of the Rings, and I've read the trilogy, I've read The Hobbit, I've read The Silmarillion, and all kinds of other histories of Middle-earth books that possibly are out there, and I was darn excited about this. Probably would have been more excited if it wasn't for the Hobbit trilogy coming before this, but having all this money, they got that Jeff Bezos money, and on top of that, and having a director like J.R.R. Bayona, who's like kind of anchoring the series, it got me pretty excited. And, you have Galadriel, you have Elrond, you have some characters that might recognize, and I have to say, from the first episode, I was pretty hooked. I really loved that first episode and how it set everything up, and it was breathtaking. Like, you can't say anything about the budget and the special effects and the production design of this series because they just went all out on it. So it's an incredible series to look at. Now, that first episode really set things up. I was drawn in. Morfydd Clark, who plays Galadriel, love her in this. She is intense. She is brave. She will stop at nothing. She's unrelenting in the way that she will find Sauron. And this is happening at a time where people in Middle-earth thought Sauron was gone, but not Galadriel. Not fooling her. And this whole entire season is like really turned into like the build-up, like who's Sauron, and it basically turned into who's Mephisto level of like it's this person, it's that person, and the discourse of this, like there is nothing distracting or weird or out of place about like the castings here. From like some of the characters might not be the most interesting of characters, but none of that really has anything to do with specifically like the race of these characters, and I know that became such a big thing about it. I never really cared to notice. I just, watched the series, and yet it has flaws. There's definitely storylines here that feel undercooked and less interesting, and some of them took until like the last episode of this season to really kick into gear and actually feel meaningful. But all I have to say is, every second that I did not get to spend in Moria with Durin and all the other dwarves was a bad thing. I'm extremely biased. I've always been a huge fan of the dwarves, and Gimli's my favorite character from Lord of the Rings. So, like, I wanted those dwarves. And I was not disappointed when they finally showed up. And, you have Durin and his father, and you have Owain Arthur, who plays Prince Doran. He is fantastic. I loved him in this. And Peter Mullen, who played his father, was also great. So anything with the dwarves and like Elrond there really worked for me. I really enjoyed Galadriel, but she got like so much of her story focused on like Numenor and this random guy Halbrand, who is mysterious. We don't know who he is really throughout most of this season, and there's aspects of that storyline that work, but like a lot of it's just like, I don't know, it felt like, let's do city politics because look, Game of Thrones can, and like, I don't know, it just, that stuff didn't seem as interesting. And I loved all the stuff with like the Stranger and Nori and the Harfoots. That whole thing, that just felt like so wonderful and charming. It felt like watching Lord of the Rings, or what The Hobbit should have felt like. And those elements really worked for me, but there's other things in here that didn't. And, this suffers from prequel syndrome because there's definitely moments that are just like, wink, and it's just like, you get what this is? And you're just like, yeah, I get it. Stop making a big deal about it. And there's obnoxious moments like that, and some of the storylines are not that interesting, and some of the characters I didn't really feel connected to. But there's so many threads here that I just loved and are impactful, and especially, like, I personally think the best episode of this season that we got so far was the last one, and I was a huge fan of it. And that one, there's one particular episode, like really big battle, and I guess probably like the premiere. Those were the ones that really stuck out to me. And this does feel like the first act of something building up this show, and looking forward to seeing where it goes and the things that we're going to get to experience from here. But I feel like by the time the credits rolled on the finale, they set up a lot of great pieces and a lot of great places. It has me excited for what's coming next. So I'm intrigued. I'm excited. I want season 2. And I enjoyed this first season of Rings of Power. But those are my thoughts on season 1 of Lord of the Rings of Power. Let me know what you think, and let's talk some TV. But thank you as always for tuning in and supporting your Wasteland reviewer.